I must ask you to halt. Right there.
Watch where you're sticking that thing.
Prepare yourselves to witness the wonderment, to behold the beguiling, to perceive the prodigious prestidigitations of Perplexo. Spirits of the netherworld, hear me. I command this gate to rise. We rehearsed this 1,000 times. Come on. All right, now, newly awakened spirits of the underworld. Unbelievable. I command this gate to rise. Are you not amazed?
We interrupt this program to bring you...
All right, everybody, my name is Kevin.
And my name's John.
And we are the Real Movie Guys, and welcome back to another episode of The Real Review, the series where we review and discuss all your favorite movies. And don't forget, if you like what you see here and you want to see more, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel today. On today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at The Electric State. An orphaned teen hits the road with a mysterious robot to find her long-lost brother, teaming up with a smuggler and his wisecracking sidekick. John, $320 million. That is the exclamation point I think I put on this movie, and it seems to be what everybody's talking about whenever you see a conversation going around this movie. The Russo brothers and $320 million. Those two things combining together, but there's all superpower and money on Netflix to make this movie, and I gotta tell you, it didn't pay off. You know what? I'll say this for it. It wasn't the worst thing I've ever seen. At no point did I ever want to turn off the movie or stop watching it. Maybe morbid curiosity or just curiosity in general. It depends on how you want to look at it, but I think it's just fine. But with the amount of money and the amount of talent, which we're going to talk about all of that invested in this movie, it really shouldn't be fine, right? Is this like the example of Hollywood that we should really expect a little bit more based on what was presented here?
Yeah, when the movie ended, which I did sit through the whole thing, I thought, well, if I was in a hotel room and this happened to be on and I was unpacking and kind of tired, I would let it continue.
Right.
And to have that be your bar when your investment is so high and you have people who have made movies like The Avengers that were beloved and impactful and made a ton of money, it's just kind of surprising that this is what you get. But like we were talking about before we recorded, maybe they need an IP to latch on to that's a little bit more well-known than this, which I believe is based on a book.
Right, and the interesting part is, a little bit of trivia that popped up for this movie was that this isn't like a special category of expensive movie where this is the only movie not based on an IP or not a sequel to a popular IP that had this much money pumped into it. Some of the other names that were thrown in here were like The Avengers, Pirates of the Caribbean, Fast and the Furious, like those movies that have established film IPs that are incredibly successful, incredibly popular, no matter what you think about them. It makes sense kind of I guess you can make that argument too, but to some extent you can understand why you're dumping so much money into those movies. But to do it for this movie, a complete unknown idea that's just starting out, or maybe they see something in the future for it just because of the names attached to it, I don't think that was such a great idea. I really don't see why they thought that would be a great idea.
The only thing I could think, I agree with you. They do in Chris Pratt and Millie Bobby Brown have two recognizable stars that are going to probably be around for a while. Mm-hmm. And the book that this is based on, I'm assuming that Netflix was able to get the rights for it somewhat inexpensively because I have never heard of it before.
Right.
And the world to me of this is interesting. You're in like a kind of post-war America where robots had risen up against humans. Mm-hmm. And what I liked about it was that the robot designs, aside from the ones that were based on characters that you're familiar with, were kind of interesting looking, dirty cans walking around. You know, they were, it was kind of cool. There was a coolness to it. Right. And I'm thinking maybe the approach was we have a cool world. Let's get some big names and pay not a lot to license this property, and maybe we could make a few of these if it works out.
So my big thing I think I took away from this whole movie, and again, it kind of encapsulates everything I think about this movie, is there's a huge identity problem with this movie, right? So the world you described is absolutely fantastic. It's something I would love to like sink my teeth into. I think it's interesting. I want to know more. I'd even argue to go out to say I might even check out the book at some point when I get a chance, just to see like what would the idea was here. But the problem is, and maybe it's just the way the movie presents it to me, I've seen it before and I've seen it told better. There's a little movie called The Matrix out there, the Animatrix, that has like a little short film pretty much about the rise and fall of robots and the rise again of them taking over. Very similar, except in this case, the robots kind of lost that battle and the humans used robots to beat the robots, which is kind of funny if you really look at it that way. But even that, it's just, I've seen it. Terminator, I've seen these robot stories told and done better, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, though, because, right, you could tell the same kind of story, but do something different to make it more interesting. And this movie does lean into that to some extent. Kind of like you said, the robots lost the war. The designs are absolutely brilliant for the older robots, I would say. The modern robots are completely boring, and I hate that design. I'm sorry. They look like a poor man's Chappie with a video screen slapped on its face. I don't like that. I think it's a terrible design. It's funny how you go from really clever to really stupid all in the same movie. But the other issue is this movie, I think it needed to find more of a target audience, because when I watch this movie, who is this for? Is it for kids? Is it for families? Is it for adults? I don't see a balance here, because I feel like it's up and down with some of its theming, some of its messaging. A lot of it's just not clear. I mean, the science stuff, if you're looking into that, just doesn't make sense half the time. There's a scene where they're kind of describing what's happening with the main character, with Billy Bobby Brown's character, and I guess her brother is trapped inside the robot. I don't know if that's a spoiler. Sorry if it is. But his essence is trapped in the robot, and she's trying to find him. That's the whole point of the movie. There's a scene literally where they sit down, a couple of scientists, and they just start talking about like all the different scientific ways this is happening. I'm like, this makes absolutely no sense. I have no idea. I don't even know what to say to this. Even if I missed the scene, I don't think it would have changed anything.
Yeah, and the other problem that I had, like you've said, a lot of movies have done this better. There were a few moments that I think were supposed to be big, impactful things that were occurring, like cutting through the progression of a human versus robot war, but they didn't really show anything.
No.
They showed a couple robots throwing a barbecue at some soldiers, literally like three guys in a yard. And I think that idea is cool. And you should really show how terrifying it would be if these things that were built to serve us, even if they're not that threatening individually, there's just so many of them that it would be a cataclysmic event, and it's totally changed the world. But I didn't get a sense of why, because they really didn't show what the robots did in their uprising.
Right, and I feel like this is like the classic go-to movie critic like criticism is the pacing, but the pacing is an issue in this movie, because you literally open the scene with Billy Bobby Brown. Spit that 10 times fast. Her and her brother that kind of introduce him into this world. Suddenly the movie just jerks to, oh, the robots uprised and destroyed the world, and this happened. It's like a long 15-minute like story, which is cool. It's a cool idea, but literally you're just like exposition dumping the whole movie to me. And then we start to slow down to where the movie kind of opens up to like be like a wannabe E.T. almost.
Yep.
I got that. It felt like it was exactly like E.T.
Yep.
And I know, again, this movie tries to say it takes place, I think, in 1993, and there's some funny things in there with some Bill Clinton AI that I think that's used in this movie and whatnot to kind of push home the 90s and some of the song choices and stuff like that. But even from there, like, it just jumps around very fast and also very slow at the same time, to where it becomes almost a jumbled mess by the time we get to the end. And like you said, those poignant scenes of action when they do happen in this movie, there's no tension either, right? When they're trying to run away or get away from anyone. And part of that also, besides the tension not being there for this movie, I think the actors were just a bad choice. I've said this before. Chris Pratt, I do like Chris Pratt. I think Chris Pratt in Guardians of the Galaxy is like top level for me, and I think he's always worked in that movie. Whenever I see him in anything else, and even that goes for the Avengers too, to be honest with you, because the Avengers version of Star-Lord versus the Guardians of the Galaxy version of Star-Lord are two very different characters, where Guardians of the Galaxy, James Gunn knew how to work with this character to bring out the depth in him and to have a more than single-dimensional character. When he went to the Avengers, he was kind of just like a hothead and an idiot, and I kind of lost the idea. It's like a director has to know how to work with that kind of actor. Chris Pratt, there's just no dimension in him, and I don't think it's necessarily his fault. And Millie Bobby Brown, same thing. I really did not care for her whatsoever. And I do love her in Stranger Things. I think she's proven she's really good at conveying emotion as an actress, but this wasn't it. And I think a lot of it just has to do with the script being so one-dimensional.
Yeah, I do think I had heard that this movie was kind of compared to Guardians of the Galaxy in that there were a lot of musical callbacks, playing songs that you've heard before. And I do think that what this movie got was the Avengers version of Star-Lord, not the Guardians of the Galaxy version of Star-Lord, and actually an even more watered down version of that, where he has a couple jokes, but it's just there's not a lot going on.
I would say maybe 2 kind of hit for me, and I would argue even his robot companion actually hit more of the jokes probably than actually Chris Pratt. Maybe Chris Pratt could have been the straight character more so in this movie, and I might have believed it a little bit more. I don't know. I think a lot of it just has to do with assignment of character in this movie. They're trying to go the Star Wars route, right? I mean, you always have like the smirky smuggler character, the young kid who doesn't know where they're going, the wise person, the Mr. Peanut character. Like, again, it's a tale as old as time. We've seen it a million times before.
The Mr. Peanut character, you've seen him a million times.
Mr. freaking Peanut, voiced by Woody Harrelson of all people in this world. It should work. I mean, again, we've seen it a million times, but the movie just doesn't do anything special with it, and it could have been. I think it really could have been something.
I do think it does have a lot of special elements in it.
Yes.
There are a lot of things to smirk at or kind of enjoy or that are unique to this movie, like the fact that there is a Mr. Peanut character
who's granting peace with the robots and the humans.
Right. If you could describe this movie to somebody in a way that it would sound very interesting, I think.
Yeah.
But just the way that it was executed was kind of a bland adventure story that didn't really focus on the elements of the adventure that were the most interesting. Like, to me, like the effect aftermath and what a robot war would look like, and then also what was really going on with Millie Bobby Brown's brother. I think you could have focused more on what his experience was like in that time that she's looking for him, and it could have been pretty interesting.
Right, and by the time you get to the end, it is a very somber ending to this movie, and I feel like even that point didn't really hit home for me like it should have. It should have been even just a little bit more impactful by the time you get to the end. And then I want to talk about the other cast too, because this movie has a huge cast, but I'm going to tell you, John, I don't think I would have known unless I looked at the IMDb of this movie, because AI certainly had its claws in this movie, and the Russos have not ashamed whatsoever of saying so. You had so many amazing voice actors here. If you take a look at the actual list, really just Alan Tudyk was in this movie. It's like a whole list.
Anthony Mackie.
Anthony Mackie is the second lead.
Jenny Slate.
Yeah.
You have a lot of really talented people, but you're right. There were really the only one I could tell who it was, which is funny, is Jenny Slate. And I was like, I think that's Jenny Slate.
She was actually one of the best characters.
She was good. Landed. And had some personality. The other ones, like, I couldn't really tell what was going on with them or who they were or anything. They were just kind of generic robot voices.
Who voiced, I want to say, the magician?
Oh,
was that Hank Azaria?
Yes, Hank Azaria was in it.
That was like, when I saw that robot design, and I want to tell you guys, that was one of the best things I've ever seen in a movie. It's like a magician robot who has like a little curtain that opens and closes in front of him, and he's like a walking robot. It's such a silly, fun design. Like, where is that design throughout this movie? Because all those characters in that scene have that, and I know they're supposed to be like the antiquated like robots and whatnot, but that's where the charm really is in this movie, is with those kind of characters.
Yeah, and I think the way that you experience these really unique designs doesn't impact you the way that it could, because if you saw I guess you're supposed to be seeing it through the eyes of somebody who's aware of these things.
Sure.
But that would be really freaky to see walking up to you, and interesting, and but everything just kind of existed in the world and was what it was and got you to the next plot point.
Yeah, and again, it has to do also with the time too, because it seems like the time from that big robot war up until where we are at this point in the movie, it doesn't seem very long. I would think, because Chris Pratt was like literally in a war, and maybe like a couple of years later he's best friends with a robot and he's out like smuggling old 90s merchandise and stuff like that. Again, these silly ideas that could be funny, but they just fall short, right? They just fall that short of being something special. And to have all these like expensive voice actors, and there's people you notice too. I mean, you had Jason Alexander's in the movie suddenly out of nowhere. I'm like, what? Holly Hunt opens this movie. What? And it's like, you have all these like amazing actors, but why? You don't need that. And you could have trimmed that $320 million budget significantly. Not to mention, this movie commits the most cardinal sin I've ever seen in a movie. And I know people probably get sick of me saying it. Zero practicality is in this movie, and the Russo brothers had no shame in saying that either, which kind of lets me down, because they said it would have inflated our budget even more if we had a single ounce of practicality. All the robots are 100% CGI in this movie, and I think that's a misstep. I mean, I know their design's fun, and I think they're enjoyable, but it's a misstep, right? Maybe less robots with a little more practicality would have added something here.
And it's not to say that they all look bad.
No.
I think the design on a lot of them and the way that they're executed is pretty good, but you're right. You could have saved that budget for some more fantastical elements, things that you can't do practically, and then have some smaller ones that had practical elements to them. Yeah, they could have approached it that way, and it probably would have been more interesting to look at, too.
Yeah, and it's a shame, because, again, I don't think this movie's terrible. You're going to see a lot of reviews out there just, like, absolutely bashing this movie. And maybe from the way we're talking about it, even to me, to some extent, I seem like it's absolutely worst thing I've ever seen. It's really not. It's just doesn't live up to the expectation I think it could have been. And that makes me more angry than if it was a bad movie, because like it could have been so good. It had so much potential. Maybe as a series or something, there was potential here. You know.
Well, not to spoil my final score, but actually, I thought my coming into this movie, I had very low expectations for it, and I was actually pleasantly surprised. Pleasantly surprised that I was able to watch the whole thing and get something out of it.
Yeah.
So. You know,
I mean,
if you, depending on how you're approaching it, obviously, and like you're saying, it kind of makes me a little more upset now that they didn't execute on the elements that I would have liked to see a little bit more, because now I'm like, well, it was actually all right. It just could have been good.
Right. And that's what's frustrating. When you see something with so much potential, that's okay. That didn't need to be okay. It needed to be something more. And, you know, if you made this under a couple $1 million movie and you did that, I'd be like, you tried. I mean, there's movies like Willy's Wonderland, what we reviewed on the channel with Nicolas Cage fighting animatronics, that was made on no budget, but had so much heart and effort into it that I enjoyed it and I had a good time. This movie, it needed that heart. It needed that extra push, and I just don't feel like it's there, which makes it a hard recommend for me for anybody, because I don't know who you would want to watch this with. Like, I would say if you have kids, would you want to watch it with your kids? Maybe it's fine. I wouldn't say, I don't know if they're going to really enjoy it, because I don't think you're going to enjoy it as the adult either. I think that's a mixed audience.
I think one of the risks with a $300+ million Netflix movie is that it kind of gets everything gets smoothed out to the point where you can't show too much of the robot war. You can't show anybody being in too much peril, you know. Right. And I don't think anyone is going to be offended by this movie. I don't think too many people are going to hate this movie, but I don't think it's going to be anybody's favorite movie.
No, and that's a shame, because again, I can't say it enough. I think it really had something, but we've babbled on long enough. I'm going to put a number on this one, John. I'm going to give The Electric State a 6 out of 10. It's middle of the road. It kind of really is. I really wanted to I wanted to give it higher. I was like sitting there like halfway through. I'm like, come on, get to a 7. You can get to a 7. I know you can do it. Get to a 7.5. Really impress me. It just doesn't. And it really sucks, you know, because there's things I really do like. I do like, even though it's AI, I do really like some of the clever character robot design in this movie. Some of the ideas are fun. The dystopian idea is very interesting. It's like almost a different take on the Matrix, if you're looking into something like that with the takeover of robots. Again, so many components here that just can't come together. Can't find an audience, can't find a tone, just can't find anything other than being mediocre. And sorry, that's really frustrating for me. So it really also comes with a non-recommend from me. I really don't think I'd recommend you checking it out. John, how about you? What do you think, man?
So for the first time, I had this number in mind before you started talking. Right. I will also give this movie a even 6 out of 10. Okay. Would I recommend it to anyone? No. But would I dissuade anyone from putting it on while you're folding the laundry?
Sure, I'm vacuuming and I can have
vacuuming.
Sure.
I think it's perfect for that. You can look up enjoy a moment of it, and go back to doing something productive, which is not a very powerful recommendation, but
Yeah.
it's, I don't feel like I completely wasted my time. I just agree with you that it could have been so much better.
Yeah, and I guess again that just seems to be the failure of Hollywood when we see them spend all this kind of money on a movie like this, and
Yep.
it just is a failure. And especially, we ask for things like this. We ask for new IPs. We ask for new ideas to be thrown at us. But sometimes you got to like scale it back a little. Just like maybe not throw that much money on it. Let's see what happens. See if you have an idea
Enough
for
that you
it.
could allow yourself to take some risks,
Right.
because you get so laden with the weight of your budget and what you expect to get out of it that I think you just end up making something generic.
And I think a lot of it also has to do with the Russos in general, which I don't want to make this too much about them. But, ever since their big celebratory success with the Avengers, it's kind of been dry season. Let's be realistic here. Besides producing everything everywhere all at once, I think some people do enjoy the Extraction movie. I've heard from what that is. They've had a lot of failures, especially on Netflix. The Gray Man, I think, was a failure. They had that show Citadel that people don't really too much enjoy. There's quite a few things that have happened since then, and you have to wonder. A director, they have their time, right? They're able to do something and be successful. And now they're kind of going back to the Avengers. Marvel's like, hey, come back. We really need you to come back and save our franchise. I don't know if they have what it takes anymore. And maybe they need to stick to what they're good at, because some of these other projects that they're adventuring in are just not taking off like I think they should.
Or maybe to look at it another way before we wrap up.
Yeah.
Maybe their skill is taking the pieces that have been strewn about and bringing them together in something, right? And let other directors take the risk of developing these new characters. Let the James Gunns have their Guardians of the Galaxy, and then let the Russos come in every few years and put it together into a package.
It's funny you say, because that seems like to be what it is with Marvel, and that's a whole nother conversation for another day. But when they know how to write for Tony Stark, unfortunately, sometimes all they know how to do is make everyone Tony Stark. And they forget the other characters that are involved. And not to say that happened in this movie, because I don't think there's even enough character for there to be a Tony Stark in this movie. But it's just some directors know what they're doing. But again, we've said all we have to say really about this movie. Down in the comments below, what do you guys think? Did you hate it? Did you love it? Is it just meh? That can be too. I think there's going to be a lot of that from most people who watch this movie, besides the crazy internet outrage for whatever reason, because God forbid you just think something's middle of the road nowadays. It has to either be the worst thing or the best thing. It's just fine. But I want to know from you guys, what did you like? Is there anything you like? If you read the book, let us know in the comments below if it's worth checking out. That's something I'd be super curious to follow up with. But thank you guys all so much for joining us for this episode of The Real Review. My name's Kevin, that guy's John. We are your Real Movie Guys. Real guys, real movies, real thoughts. We'll see you in the next one. If you guys like what you've seen here today, consider giving this video a like and leaving your thoughts in the comments below. If you want to stay up to date with everything Real Movie Guys related, make sure to hit that subscribe button and check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And don't forget, all you audio listeners at home, we are available on many podcasting platforms. Just search The Real Movie Guys, you should pop right up. Thank you again all so much for joining us on this episode of The Real Review. We are The Real Movie Guys. Real guys, real movies, real thoughts. Catch you next time.